So I would thank first the organizer for giving me the opportunity to present my works dealing with macrophagic myofasciitis. Okay, so there is my disclosures. Okay, you don't see, I don't know whether there is a pointer. Well, okay. And so, macrophagic myofasciitis is a peculiar condition characterized by very specific histopathological lesions at muscle biopsy. These lesions are formed by macrophagic infiltrates, and these infiltrates contains aluminum hydroxide crystals. And therefore, we have shown that these macrophagic myofasciitis lesions represent a post-vaccinal aluminic granuloma. And such a granuloma will occur in everybody after the injection of aluminic vaccine in deltoid muscles. But the pathological feature is the pathological fact is that in patients, the MMF lesion is observed years after the immunization, and that represents an abnormal long-term persistence of aluminum within body. And this fact was pointed out by the WHO in 1999. They said that the MMF represents the individual inability to efficiently clear aluminum hydroxide from the body. So in a large series published a few years ago, we have shown that patients were middle-aged adult, most often women. The most frequently observed vaccine was hepatitis B vaccine. And an important point was that symptoms most often occur during the first year following the immunization. But in contrast, the delay between the last vaccinations and the muscle biopsy was around 5 years. And this delay corresponds to the persistence time of aluminum hydroxide within muscles. Now, the core symptoms we observed in patients were muscle pain and joint pain, chronic fatigue, and cognitive impairment. If we focus on more recently diagnosed patients, we observe more frequently DTP vaccine and papillomavirus vaccine in these patients. And if you consider patients with HPV vaccine, the mean age is significantly lower than in other groups. And there is modifications of the phenotype of patients at present. We observe more and more young patients, adolescents, and young adults. So, as you can see here, in fact, the symptoms present in patients with MMF lesions correspond to that forming the clinical criteria of chronic fatigue syndrome. And in a recent evaluation of 105 patients from our hospital, we observed that 71% of patients fulfill the CDC criteria for chronic fatigue syndrome. A very important point is that patients had cognitive complaint, and the cognitive dysfunction, the MMF-associated cognitive dysfunction, MACD, is characterized by core features: dysexecutive syndrome, memory impairment, and interhemispheric disconnection. And MACD appears stable with time, and recently we have shown that the cognitive deficits correlate with the SPECT abnormality, that is brain functioning. And in our hospital, we have set up a neuropsychological battery designed to target all domain of cognitive functioning. And from the neuropsychological evaluations of MMF patients, we were able to distinguish 4 groups in this patient. So the main cognitive domain evaluated by these neurological evaluations are the fronto-subcortical function, executive function, attention, processing speed. The hippocampal functions that corresponds to memory, and the cortical function, and also interhemispheric disconnection. So, as I said, we have, by using these neuropsychological evaluations, we have delineated 4 different cognitive profiles among our patients. The first group is made by patients without full-blown cognitive deficits. A second group corresponds to patients with pure fronto-subcortical deficits, that is dysexecutive syndrome. The third group is made by patients with dysexecutive syndrome and memory impairment. And finally, the last group, the smallest group, is formed by patients with all the cognitive features, including the dysexecutive syndrome, memory impairment, and interhemispheric disconnection. An important point is that these cognitive deficits did not correlate with pain, fatigue, or depression levels. Another important feature we observe is that patients without significant deficit displayed mild alterations in the executive function, and that suggests a continuum between the different groups. And in addition, if we look specifically at patients with positive criteria for CFS, we obtain the same distributions of cognitive impairment among these patients. Now we use the positron emission tomography for investigating the brain function in patients. And PET scan is a functional imaging technique using a radio tracer called FDG. It's fluorodesoxyglucose, and FDG is taken by active cells. And therefore, the uptake of FDG is parallel to the cell metabolism. And therefore, it can reflect the activity of neurons, and therefore, it allows direct evaluations of brain functioning. That is well illustrated by this picture. Here you have the aspect of a normal brain, of a brain from a normal person, healthy person, and the red color corresponds to the higher metabolism. And so you can see that the cortex is red. And if you see a patient with mild cognitive impairment, that is a pre-Alzheimer condition, you will observe the decrease in metabolism assessed by the vanishing of red color. And of course, in a patient with Alzheimer's disease, you have a strong decrease in metabolism reflecting the cortical atrophy. And so in a study published past year, we have investigated PET scan, several PET scan in MMF patients, and we have compared the results obtained in 100 MMF patients with that obtained in 44 healthy controls. And we observed that MMF patients had hypometabolisms in the posterior cerebral areas that correspond to the occipitocerebellar junction and temporal areas. A very interesting findings was that when we compared the three main subset of patients, we observed a similar pattern of hypometabolism profile, but specifically, we observed this pattern in patients without cognitive deficit. And so we hypothesized that the PET scan hypometabolism pattern could be a biomarker for MMF. And this hypothesis is illustrated by this case report. It's a very classical story of a 46-year-old woman. She presented with a 9-year history of muscle and neuropathic pain in forelimbs, joint pain, chronic fatigue, and finally cognitive impairment. And the routine evaluation of these patients was uninformative. And when I saw the patient, I checked the vaccination booklet, and I observed that the occurrence of symptoms in these patients followed a series of aluminum hydroxide vaccine. And the first biopsy performed in left deltoid muscle was negative, was normal. And so I decided to perform a brain PET scan, and the PET scan disclosed a typical hypometabolisms. I am unable to show you, but it's posterior areas. And so I decided to perform a second muscle biopsy in the opposite side, in the right deltoid muscle, and we observed a very typical muscle injury with the focal infiltrates of macrophages and with a strong PS positive staining. And so to evaluate the diagnostic performance of PET scan for MMF, we use the deep learning approach. And for that, we use the support vector machines or SVM software that is commonly used by radiologists for machine learning in the context of multiple voxel-based imaging, such as MRI or PET scan. The first step is the training step. And so for that, we use the data we have collected during the previous studies, that is the PET scan data obtained in 100 patients and the 44 controls. And so from this data, the software will elaborate the algorithm, the most appropriate to distinguish between a PET scan from MMF patient and a PET scan from healthy patients. And the second step will be the testing steps to evaluate the algorithm. And so the testing populations were first 19 newly diagnosed MMF patients with a classical feature, and 20 new healthy subjects from, they are controls from another clinical trial. These individuals were matched for age. They did not have any neurological or psychiatric disease or cognitive complaints, and they have normal brain MRI. And the SVM appropriately classified MMF and LC patients with only 3 false positive false positive cases and only two false negative cases. And on the whole, the SVM correctly classified into the MMF pattern with a sensitivity of 89%, a specificity of 85%, positive predictive value of 85%, and negative predictive value of 89%. And the overall accuracy was 87%. So in conclusion, the PET scan shows in MMF patients a very characteristic pattern of hypometabolism not observed in healthy individuals. It could represent a non-invasive tool for identifying patients with MMF. And the machine learning algorithms are very promising for the diagnosis, but of course we need further validation in prospective cohort, especially by evaluating patients with other conditions associated with chronic fatigue and chronic pain. And to finish, I will thank all people working with me in my group, especially this guy. I cannot point it, but without a lab coat on. No, but it's Mediaoun Sebati. He's a neuropsychologist, and he performs the evaluations of patients. And I will also thank our sponsor. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now the paper is open for discussion.
Hi, David Calvin from California. Did you see any dysautonomia in your patients? I'm asking because I see primarily patients with ME/CFS, and I'm just struck once again, as I was with Dr. Lavin's presentation, how all three groups are identical, virtually.
For CSF patients, you see, yes.
Right, your patients are like mine, as were
yes.
Dr. Lavin's. The only thing missing in your group was dysautonomia. Did you see that in those patients?
For dysautonomia, you want. In these patients, yes, it's not exactly in MMF patients, clear-cut dysautonomia in most in middle-aged adult. But of course, we must face to younger patients, and especially following HPV vaccine, and we have a lot of patients with dysautonomic symptoms. I agree with you, and but I must indicate that only a minority of these patients will have aluminic granuloma at muscle biopsy. In fact, probably there are some differences between these younger patients and the middle-aged patients we have.
Thanks.
Ebringer, London. My question is in relation to the neurological symptoms that you have in your patients. Do you think aluminium is present in the brain tissue?
Thank you very much for this very difficult question. Unfortunately, or not, no. Fortunately, patients did not die from this condition, so we did not have the opportunity to evaluate this, really this question. We have no indication in patients to be sure that aluminium is present. However, all animal experiments showed that after injections, intramuscular injections of aluminic adjuvant, it's possible to find aluminium within brain tissue. So my belief is there is a relation between the entry of aluminium within brain and the occurrence of cognitive dysfunctioning in patients. However, I cannot prove it definitely at present. I hope to be able to do it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, can I just ask then? You have a society dedicated to MMF? Is something ongoing for individuals to donate brains upon death?
Yeah, yeah. We try. We have. There is two difficulties. Yes, we ask to patients to donate brain for research purpose, so they agree with this feature, but the disease by itself is not life-threatening, so we have not a lot. It's not like in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, for example.
No, but you have several hundred at least associated with your clinic, and some of those, all of those will die eventually.
Yes, yes.
And do you have an arrangement with a brain bank?
Yes.
So that
yes.
In the future at least,
yes.
the question asked by the
yes,
gentleman
exactly.
can be addressed.
Yes, yes, yes.
Have any of these scans been performed on CFS patients?
It's yes. It's we at present we are doing such investigations in CFS patients, and it's probably. I think that some CFS patients will present with similar PET scan abnormalities, and they will be checked for vaccine antecedent, and also we need to perform muscle biopsy in this patient. Yes.
Okay, so you haven't published this yet, or is it an ongoing study?
No, yes, it's ongoing. Okay. At present we have focused on the comparison with healthy subjects, because it was possible for us to have this data very easily, because a lot of trials performed in neuroscience use a normal subject for having a control PET scan. So it's very simple for us to perform this study. But to perform PET scan in CSF patients, in fibromyalgic patients is ongoing.
The other question I had is, are there parallel studies looking at cytokine markers or inflammatory markers in MMF patients?
We did it, and so we have in MMF patients we have shown that there were an increase of CCL2 MCP1 in the serum of patients, but not of other inflammatory cytokines.
May I add something? We have two abnormalities in the cytokine profile in the blood of MMF patients. They have both a unique increase of CCL2, which can be elicited by the adjuvant, this is well known, and a drop of many other cytokines below the normal level. So they have both an immunologic burnout, and except for CCL2, which is very high. And this is not very far from what has been observed in idiopathic CFS syndrome that were shown by Hornig and colleagues in Columbia University to have an explosion of cytokines during the first 3 years, followed by an immunologic burnout afterwards, which appears to reflect some activation, long-standing activation of the immune system that cannot switch out until the burnout. And our patients are in this phase of immunologic burnout.
Yes, but for the study from Hornig, it was not a follow-up of the same patients.
Sure.
So they are still debated, and I think that among the CSF patients in a lot of studies, there are probably hidden patients with MMF or patients with hidden MMF, because we must perform the muscle biopsy to evidence the long-term persistence of aluminum hydroxide.
This is important. Probably all of you that care about patients with post-vaccinal diseases, you have MMF patients, but you do not know you have them because you do not perform deltoid muscle biopsy. Either because you do not perform muscle biopsies at all, or because you are performing muscle biopsy in the quadriceps muscle, which is not a site for vaccination. So the emerging possibility to have non-invasive diagnostic tools will help us to speak the same language and defining the patient on the same, using the same tools.
For the case of CSF patients is actually a lot of work dealing with the stratifications of patients, because patients are diagnosed on the grounds of clinical criteria, and everybody agree to think that there are some different subgroups. For example, patients with active immune response, and in contrast, patients without. And so I think that in the future we will stratify patients with CFS according, for example, with imaging feature or blood immunological profile.
Okay, thank you very much.